Prime Time with anchors Diane Sawyer in New York, Sam Donaldson in Washington, and Chief Correspondent Chris Wallace.
Tonight, a primetime investigation. Prudential.
We've been there, we'll be there.
One of the most trusted names in insurance, caught deceiving customers over more than a decade.
They don't have to cheat people to make money.
A primetime exclusive training tape of a sales pitch that was framed to confuse.
And don't tell them right up front, we're going to talk about a life insurance policy.
That's against the law.
And witnesses come forward to talk about the scandal that left huge numbers of policyholders without their piece of the rock.
Manager told me, he said, just sell it. We'll worry about it later. Just sell something.
Prime Time, now from New York, Diane Sawyer.
Good evening. Prudential. The name is ingrained in American life, doing business with 1 in 5 of us. And so it was a shock just 2 days ago when Florida threatened to ban the Prudential from selling life insurance in the state, accusing it of deceiving customers to sell more life insurance. How many customers nationwide? Thousands, perhaps even millions. And this comes on the heels of a multi-state task force this past summer, which slapped the company with a record $35 million fine, again, for misleading customers. So, over the past 6 months, Primetime talked to dozens of current and former Prudential employees. We obtained documents and tapes the task force didn't get to see. And tonight, we raise a serious question. Did senior management know more about the practices than they acknowledged, and for longer? We begin with what no one disputes, that a lot of customers were hurt. It's a $200 billion financial empire, with assets equaling the economy of many countries, like Sweden. The heart of Prudential's business is life insurance. More Americans buy it from Prudential than any other company. And as the ads say, the rock was built on trust.
They don't have to cheat people to make money, and we feel that we've been cheated, definitely.
Joe and Irene Sidlow are Florida retirees who say for them it began when their Prudential agent persuaded them to cash in their old Prudential policies and take out a mortgage on their home to buy a big new policy, nothing more to pay. But after the first year, they got a jolt, a premium bill they couldn't afford. They asked their agent about it.
It was $813 a month. And I said, what is this? And he said, oh, it's just a computer error. He said, don't worry about it. You're taken care of. Just throw them away. So I did.
The Sidlows say they didn't realize that their agent was using a blank withdrawal form they naively signed to raid the cash value of the new policy to pay the premiums on it and keep his commission. Eventually, the whole scheme collapsed. And faced with large bills, the Sidlows felt they had no choice but sell their home.
He was our professional insurance man. You know, we trusted him. I trusted him like I do my banker, my pastor.
Hey, come visit, okay?
I will.
Carol Nicholson, who recently retired from Kmart, says she was the victim of a similar deception. She says her agent told her and her husband, Keith, that the dividends from their old life insurance policies would finance a new big one at no extra cost. But she says she didn't know that her agent was also using a blank withdrawal form to use not just the dividends, but the cash value of the old policies to pay for the new one.
They never came and said, Keith, you're taking a loan out against your policies, because I know what he would have told them. He would have told him a piece of his mind. He would never have done this.
By the time her husband died of leukemia, the old policies were depleted. The new one lapsed. Instead of $130,000, Carol was left with $22,000.
You plan your future and then somebody disrupts it. That's not fair.
We had abuses that we're not proud of.
Priscilla Myers is a senior vice president and auditor at Prudential.
We've recognized the mistakes that we've made, and we want to fix those mistakes. We want to let our policyholders know that we're serious about that.
And what an array of abuses there was. This is the task force report from last July, and it cites deceptive practices ranging from misleading customers about the cost and risk of what they're buying to raiding old policies to pay for new ones, even disguising what they're selling. life insurance. Keep this in mind. Agents make their biggest commission on the sale of life insurance, and managers get a cut. And we were told there was unrelenting pressure to come up with tactics to make the sale. For instance, for the elderly in Florida, use murky language.
We affectionately call this area God's waiting room.
This is a Prudential training tape obtained by Primetime. In it, a company sales manager encourages agents to go after the savings of retirees, and in their pitch, avoid using the word people associate with life insurance payments, premium.
We would very seldom ever talk about a premium, you know, because that's painful, right, that premium. That's why we went to the capital transfer. That's how we present it, transferring from one institution to another, no pain.
And take a look at these marketing materials which agents use to sell life insurance. The problem? They make it sound like something it's not. For instance, calling it a private pension plan, a retirement plan, a nursing home plan, an alternative to savings.
They called it everything other than what it was. It was life insurance. I mean, it was, don't mention the L word.
Rick Martin was a district manager at Prudential. Mike Weaver, a former agent. They are among dozens of whistleblowers who say they saw deception daily. Are you saying that you were giving the illusion of being an investment counselor, when in fact you were selling life insurance?
Absolutely. Manager told me, he said, just sell it. We'll worry about it later. Just sell something.
These are some examples of how records were kept.
And Weaver showed us how routine it was to get customers to sign blank transfer forms like those that got Carol Nicholson and the Sidlows in trouble. He rummaged through the files from fellow agents in his old office.
This has 5 signed
Wait a minute.
forms.
There's nothing filled in on here.
Nothing.
Just signed.
These are signed. That's
Which
it.
means that they could put in for the
Anything
premium.
that they wanted. This is the same as giving someone blank checks out of your checking account.
Several agents told us signatures on the blank sheets sometimes were forged. And take a look at something else Primetime obtained.
And don't tell them right up front we're going to talk to them about a life insurance policy. We will explain that along the way in the presentation, too.
This is another training tape in which a regional vice president of Prudential and an agent instruct other agents how you lure customers into the tent by skirting what you're really selling.
Let's get beyond that word insurance. Let's don't be concerned about what we call a plan. Let's just look at the end result.
There you go.
Let's get beyond that word insurance. Meaning?
Life insurance. Well, that's what it is. So call it what it is.
Bill Nelson, Florida's insurance commissioner, who just this week threatened to suspend Prudential's license in that state. So you're saying this is not just spinning it in the marketing sense. This is not putting the most positive gloss on what you're doing. This is deception.
This is outright deception. It's selling life insurance either as another kind of product, an investment kind of product, when in fact they're not being told that it actually is life insurance, and that's against the law.
They're going to need it for nursing home care.
We asked Priscilla Myers, what about those Prudential training tapes?
And don't tell them right up front we're going to talk to them about a life insurance policy. We will explain.
Don't tell them, it says.
Correct. That clearly is in violation of company policy.
This is a vice president doing it?
I think that
This is
that's
management.
I think that's horrible. And had we known of that, we would have taken action against that group or that person.
I believe they're still in the company, aren't they? Myers was told, yes, these two still are. There's really only a couple of possibilities here. Either the management at the top was completely out of touch with what was going on in the company, or it was an implicit endorsement of it. This high up, this many training tapes, this widespread.
I think what the task force has said is that the company wasn't paying attention as aggressively as it should have been to the flags that were up.
So when then did senior management start to see it as a collective, widespread problem?
I would say that that started coming together for us in the 92, 93, 94 period.
That's clearly untrue.
This is John Cressman, a former top auditor for Prudential, who is speaking out on television for the first time because he's concerned that even after the task force's blistering report, the company is still not telling the truth.
I have no doubt in my mind that senior management knew about this problem in 1986 and to some degree in 1983 also.
How does he know?
Prudential's home office sent a special auditing team here to Cedar Rapids.
Because his audit helped expose one local scandal in 1983 in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Our ABC affiliate, KCRG, interviewed agents who say on television that they were taught to raid old policies to pay for new ones.
You raid the cash value, anything that's in there.
Sell no matter what price. If you have to step on a client to make that buck, to push those people in management up higher, to get you up higher, my God, that's what you do.
At the time, Prudential executives said Cedar Rapids was an isolated case. But John Cressman says when he launched another audit in 1986, he documented that the problem was widespread, and he took those findings directly to senior management at Newark headquarters.
We told them as a result of all of those reviews that this was a company-wide problem that needed to be fixed, and that the controls we were recommending could not only detect the problem, but could lead management to the places they needed to fix it.
And Cressman wasn't the only one sounding the alarm. Here's a 1986 tape of District Manager Tony Toscano decrying troubling tactics he's seen.
Those clients are not getting what they deserve. They're getting screwed.
Rick Martin says starting in 1987,
I complained to 3 vice presidents of marketing.
He also talked to his regional head of consumer affairs, who in 1992 wrote a memo and sent it directly to the president of Prudential, warning, we are now truly struggling with the sins of the past because of tactics most new agents had been taught. But what did Prudential do?
The mentality of the company was to kill the messenger. They didn't want to hear about these problems because management was benefiting financially from the things that were happening.
Martin now sells mobile homes in Kentucky. He was fired for insubordination. Mike Weaver was fired for low production. Tony Toscano told us he resigned out of frustration and despair. And that 1986 audit was John Cressman's last for Prudential. He was transferred and later resigned. Prudential is refusing to turn over Cressman's report to regulators. And that's not the only document problem.
I filled a dumpster full and had the trash people come and pick up the dumpster and filled up another dumpster full.
Former District Manager Ron Ward is one of several former Prudential employees who told us about the destruction of improper sales materials. In this case, after he got a memo from his vice president's office. It says, we just learned this morning that one state is looking into possible violations regarding our private pension materials. You must destroy all private pension letters other than the approved versions. Again, destroy and discard any other letters. Will you read this memo to me then? And tell me what you think it means. Myers says they weren't hiding documents from regulators. They were just protecting consumers.
We are asking people in our offices for materials that could be misleading. We're asking that those be destroyed so that they are not misused.
I think the company knew the regulators were looking at them, and they felt that let's get these hidden, destroyed, purged.
Primetime has also seen affidavits from several agents around the country describing a continuous and wholesale destruction of potentially incriminating sales and marketing materials.
If it has been destruction of evidence, that's obstruction of justice, and that will be handled in the criminal court system.
Good afternoon. Thank you for calling Prudential.
Which brings us to today. Prudential has set up a hotline to help provide restitution to anyone who was misled.
The dividends from the older policies are going to be used, or the cash values are going to be used?
The dividend.
And the company says to make sure customers are treated fairly today.
It just hurts to have been misled like this.
We have a totally different management team, totally new procedures, totally new systems, and a new set of accountabilities. They can expect an agent who's going to deal with them honestly and fairly.
So Primetime decided to visit a couple of agents we'd heard about, one in New York, one in Texas. 2 real Prudential customers agreed to help us, though we had the hidden cameras. What happens? Well, it reminded us of tactics we'd heard about before. Prudential tells us it's generally in a customer's best interest to hold on to old policies. But the agent in Houston says the opposite, advising the customer to cash in a perfectly fine old policy with another company, Northwestern Mutual. to buy a new Prudential policy.
Why am I getting rid of? Should I have kept my Northwestern Mutual policy also? Okay. Well, why am I getting rid of that?
That policy was not doing anything for you.
I haven't given up anything other than, okay.
You gained.
Gained? Well, we had the Consumer Federation of America analyze this deal. It says the consumer's new policy would have to earn more than 9% annually for 20 years to break even. When we went to Syracuse, New York, the agent there made a pitch to finance a new policy with dividends from old ones, while downplaying the risk the dividends might fall short.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's an asset to use those dividends?
Yeah, I have about 1,000 people using their dividends. Prudential pisses you, pardon the expression, gets mad, okay? And they bend out of shape and they send me a letter and they send you a letter and all that other stuff because why? They got to pay the interest twice now.
On another visit, the agent repeatedly assures his customer of reliable high returns on an insurance policy with stock investments, an assurance Prudential says he shouldn't make.
Ready? Ready?
He makes it sound risk-free.
Well, why isn't everybody in the world doing this?
Well, because the simple fact is I haven't had a chance yet to talk to everybody in the world.
By the way, this salesman was recently awarded Local Agent of the Month. Prudential says because of what we witness, it's investigating both agents, and that it's already fired 1,000 agents and managers for wrongdoing. But a footnote. Just 3 weeks ago, Primetime was handed a confidential internal report dated June of this year, listing more than 1,000 current agents with multiple complaints against them for things like misrepresentation and forgery.
Well, I don't want to use the word crooks, but they were a large enough company so they didn't have to do this kind of thing to get along.
Once and for all, this problem needs to be fixed for good. This should never happen again, and I was concerned that unless more light was put on the problem, it could very easily happen again.
And now some important notes for you. Tonight we reported on Prudential, but you should know that agents in several other big insurance companies, including Metropolitan Life, John Hancock, Equitable, and New York Life, have been accused of similar deceptive sales tactics. And we're not saying that you shouldn't buy life insurance. The important thing is to know what you need and exactly what it is you're buying. As for Prudential customers, the company has agreed to a plan that would settle the complaints and lawsuits against it, which some say could cost the company almost $2 billion. Though critics like the state of Florida say this restitution plan doesn't give customers enough money and makes it too hard for them to prove that they were harmed. One final point for you. If you are one of the 11 million people who bought a whole life insurance policy from Prudential after 1982, you face a deadline next Thursday, December 19th, to inform the court overseeing the settlement if you do not want to be part of the overall restitution plan, and if you prefer instead to take action on your own.